is Remember. Remember is a first-person survival horror shooter game. It takes place in a semi-open world. The world is similar to it takes place in a semi-open world set in the 1950s in America. The setting is supposed to be somewhat creepy, kind of like Pleasantville. And what happens is that over time, the world changes from a picturesque, functioning town to a complete zombie apocalypse disaster scenario. This change occurs procedurally. It occurs due to game rules and interactions between zombies and human NPC characters. As a zombie bites a human, it will get sick, and over time it'll die and turn into a zombie. We have several engineering systems that we have designed out and we're working on in our prototype that realize this goal. But the idea is that we want to create a world that the player can interact with dynamically to alter the course of the spread of the disease and the eventual fate of the world. The goal of the player is to either A, survive on their own, simply, or if the player is more ambitious, they can choose to attempt to save other people in the world or even the entire town, which can be accomplished by stopping the spread of the disease, cutting it off at its root, so to speak. So the player will be playing in the same environments, and they'll transition dynamically over time as the game world changes due to the player's actions. It is a first-person shooter game. It's going to be less focused on combat than a lot of shooters. It's much more about exploration of the game environment and gathering resources, managing strategies. But combat is still really important. The goal is to create scenarios where the player spends most of the time exploring, finding strategic locations, and gathering equipment, and then in specific scenarios, pushing the player to kind of reach a climax where there's a lot of combat. And the combat systems are essentially such that zombies are very difficult to kill, but they're not necessarily dangerous on their own. But zombies have a tendency to group up and become more dangerous in groups, kind of the typical zombie scenario. So Brian's going to go a little bit into kind of the systems that we have to kind of realize this dynamically changing world.
So as you've heard, we have a lot of AI involved in this, and we have a couple systems in place that we're trying to develop and experiment with, and really create a sense of like space for the player to work with. I think what we're going for is something like Minecraft, where you can come into a world and really interact with it, kind of have that effect on the world that everything that you do changes how it's going to be in the future, just with the small interactions that you have with the zombie population and the AI. So one of our systems is the humans themselves. We want them to be on some kind of schedule so that they are going about their daily lives. They're not circling around you, the player. It's supposed to be less of like an egocentric world where you just play a small role, or you see yourself as a smaller role than you do in many like RPG games where you're obviously the lead character. And with the disease spread, the interactions between the human population and the zombies they're gonna spread the disease throughout the town dynamically as the zombies move from one location to another. And these zombies are gonna be attracted to like the senses that they have. So typical zombie senses are sight and sound. Primarily sound is gonna be one of the main systems, but like each NPC will make some sound, and zombies will be attracted to it, pulling them across map. A couple of our other systems that we were going into is population control. So what we want to do is have a stable world that we can work with, and we want to represent these interactions like by approximation, because it's going to be impossible for us to keep track of the amount of actors that we want in the game. So we're going to break down kind of the world into separate little zones where we approximate how humans would work in that zone and how the zombies would interact with them.
So the art style is representational. It's not completely realistic. We're going for fairly detailed character models and environment. But we want to use high contrast shaders and kind of cartoonish characters that are a little bit morbid. And the environments are all supposed to be kind of a small town America type of setting, suburban to more rural, but nothing big city. So yeah, a lot of it's supposed to kind of evoke an idealized version of 1950s Main Street culture. And some of the themes are kind of intentionally hyper-conservative by today's standards. And it's supposed to contrast with later on in the game when the surviving NPCs are kind of pushed to become more ruthless in their behaviors and their attitudes in order to survive. So our current team, we're looking for a few more engineers and designers. Basically, we're looking for probably 1 or 2 more systems designers and a handful of level designers. Engineers are going to be working. Our development platform is UDK on PC. So our engineers are going to be writing script for UDK and tools development. Because of the procedural nature of the spread of the disease, balancing of systems is going to be really important to make sure that kind of actions don't cause events that spiral way out of control of what it should be happening. It's going to be a lot of the focus of our design going forward into the project.
Taking that into account, we're going to need a few tools programmers that can make things for designers to quickly change variables and see how that plays out.
Yeah, so what we have today, it's kind of a quick intro to our game. So if you have any questions or comments? All right.
And what are you doing now?
We'll post up all the emails on the Sling at the end.